Hi, I'm Justina from Practices Academy, and today we are breaking down CIMA F1, financial reporting. If you are starting your CIMA journey, F1 is one of the three papers at the operational level, alongside E1 and P1. CIMA actually recommends you study E1 first, then P1, and then F1. So if you're here, you're probably close to finishing this stage. So what's F1 actually about? In short, it's where you learn how to prepare and understand financial statements and how tax affects businesses' numbers. The paper is broken down into 4 areas. The biggest one by far is financial statements, and it's worth 45% of the exam. That's the IFRS framework, how to account for things like leases, impairment, inventory, and how to actually prepare extracts from the statement of financial position, profit and loss, and the cash flows. Then cash and working capital at 25%. Short-term finance, managing receivables and payables, cash flow forecasting. Then principles of taxation is at 20%. Corporate tax, direct versus indirect tax, and the ethics around things like tax avoidance. And the smallest section, 10%, is for the regulatory environment. Who sets the rules and why? The exam itself is an objective test, so it's 60 questions, 90 minutes, computer-based, and you can sit it on demand at any test center or online. Once you've passed E1, P1, and F1, you move on to the operational case study, which pulls everything together from all those 3 papers into a simulated scenario. In this video, we'll walk you through exactly how to approach each of those 4 exam areas. So let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive right into this explainer on the blueprint for the CIMA F1 financial reporting exam. Right off the bat, you need to know that CIMA F1 is an objective test. It's one of 3 absolutely crucial papers sitting at the operational level, right alongside E1 and P1. And look, the way you prepare for this is going to be fundamentally different from a case study, because the structure of an objective test demands a very, very specific kind of readiness. Picture this. When you sit down to take this test, whether at a center or at home, you are going to face exactly 60 questions, and you'll encounter a whole mix of formats. We're talking standard multiple choice, multiple response, fill-in-the-blank number entry, and even those tricky drag-and-drop questions. So you've got to be ready to adapt to how the question is being asked, not just what is being asked. And here's the kicker. You have to do all of that within a strict 90-minute time limit. Since this is a computer-based, on-demand exam, the clock is literally always ticking. Time management here isn't just important, it's absolutely critical. You can move back and forth between questions and change your answers, sure, but only if you actually leave yourself the time to do so. Now, the scoring mechanic here, it's kind of brutal, honestly. You've got 60 questions, and every single one is worth equal marks. But here is the critical warning. There are absolutely no partial marks. None. 0. If a question has 3 parts and you get 2 of them right, you score a 0 for that entire question. Every single piece of a question must be completely correct to secure the point. And just to add a little more pressure, there's absolutely no formula sheet or mathematical tables provided. If you've taken P1, you might be used to having some reference materials handy. Well, not here. In F1, every single formula you need has to be memorized. Total recall is your only option, so you really need to prepare to become very good friends with your flashcards. So, how do we conquer this whole thing? We break it down into 5 distinct parts. Area A covers the regulatory environment. Area B is financial statements. Area C tackles principles of taxation. Area D handles cash and working capital. And finally, we'll wrap up with our overall study strategy. The reality of the F1 exam is that these 4 content areas are definitely not weighted equally. You've got Area A at 10%, Area C at 20%, Area D at 25%, and then dominating the entire exam is Area B at a massive 45%. Understanding these exact weightings is the absolute key to allocating your study time. Your effort has to fiercely match this breakdown. All right, starting off with Area A, regulatory environment, which makes up 10% of the exam. This is the smallest slice of the pie, and it basically tests your understanding of the landscape. It asks who regulates financial reporting and why. So you'll need to know the roles of major bodies like the IASB, the International Accounting Standards Board, and the IFRS Foundation. Within this, you really need to grasp the fundamental differences between rules-based and principles-based accounting. We're also looking at corporate governance here, specifically the role of the board, the scope of corporate governance regulation globally, and the CGMA Code of Ethics. So, the crucial point is how you actually study for this section. For Area A, your approach should be pure knowledge recall. There are zero calculations here. Just treat it as memorization. Because it's only 10% of the exam, the return on investment for spending extra hours here is extremely low compared to the rest of the syllabus. Get familiar with it, secure those basic marks, and move on.
Next up is Area B, financial statements, coming in at a whopping 45%.
At nearly half your total grade, this is the undeniable heart of F1. Make no mistake, this is exactly where the exam is won or lost. If you only have time to truly master one single area, this is it, for sure. You are going to be tested heavily on specific IFRS standards, non-current assets, inventory, events after the reporting period, but I want you to pay very special attention to IFRS 16 for leases, specifically from the lessee's perspective, and the indicators and accounting for impairment. Marks are incredibly easy to lose on leases and impairment if you haven't drilled the mechanics until they're second nature. Beyond those specific standards, you have to know the primary statements. The statement of financial position, profit or loss and other comprehensive income, changes in equity, and cash flows, specifically using the indirect method. My biggest piece of advice here, do not just passively read the theory. You need to physically practice preparing extracts for these 4 statements. The exam tests your application, so your study time has to involve actively doing, not just reading. Ultimately, success in Area B requires application over recall. You need to really master the IASB's conceptual framework. You have to blend conceptual principles, things like recognition criteria, measurement bases, and the concept of capital maintenance, directly with hard applied calculations. You've got to understand the why so you can immediately execute the how. Moving right along to Area C, principles of taxation at 20%. This section shifts our focus to how different tax structures impact incorporated entities. Once you grasp the core difference between direct taxes, like tax on trading income, and indirect taxes, like sales taxes and excise duties, you'll face a classic exam mechanic, adjusting an accounting profit into a taxable profit. This means you must know exactly how to add back disallowable expenses, deduct exempt income, and replace accounting depreciation with tax depreciation by calculating capital allowances. And that leads directly to the core calculation of this entire section, corporate income tax liability. This is a totally non-negotiable skill. You must practice calculating a company's corporate income tax liability until the mechanics become completely automatic. It's a high-value, highly testable calculation that you simply cannot afford to get wrong. But Area C isn't just math, though. There are some weighty conceptual topics here as well, particularly involving cross-border and ethical issues. You'll need to understand corporate residence, double taxation relief, withholding tax, the ethics of transfer pricing, and the really critical distinction between tax evasion and tax avoidance. And just remember, these topics require a deep conceptual understanding, not complex math. Then we have Area D, cash and working capital at 25%. This area deals with short-term finance and really the day-to-day survival of a business. We're talking managing cash positions, understanding factoring or overdrafts, and mitigating the very real risks of overtrading. To manage all that, there are a few crucial formulas you absolutely must know from memory. Trade receivable days, trade payable days, and inventory days. These operating and cash cycle metrics are highly testable. You need to be able to calculate them flawlessly and know how to interpret them against prior periods or industry competitors. Inventory management is another huge component here. You've got to understand just-in-time, or JIT, techniques to minimize holding costs. But even more importantly, you must know the economic order quantity, or EOQ. That's the exact formula for minimizing total inventory costs, and you need to know it inside and out. Again, no formula sheet, so this equation needs to be permanently locked in your brain before exam day. You're also going to need to compare conceptual approaches to managing working capital policies. Like, how does an aggressive investment policy actually differ from a moderate or conservative one? What is the financial impact of changing these policies? You'll need to understand these concepts right alongside the mechanics of preparing short-term cash flow forecasts so you can identify surpluses or deficits. Finally, let's look at our overall study strategy to wrap things up. Look, your priority focus literally has to match the exam's structural weightings. Area B is 45%,
so you need to allocate roughly half your study time there and practice those statement extracts hands-on. For core calculations, master that corporate tax liability, the EOQ, and working capital days. And for Area A, just keep it to the minimum necessary recall. Please do not over-invest your precious time there at the expense of the much heavier sections.
And finally, keep your eyes on the ultimate ROI here. Passing this objective test is really just step one. The absolute truth is that a strong grasp of F1 fundamentals pays off twice. You use it to clear this exam today, and then it forms the direct foundation of the operational case study, where you will apply this exact same knowledge in a simulated scenario. So the question is, will you build a foundation today that is actually strong enough to carry you all the way through tomorrow?
So that's your complete breakdown of CIMA F1, the regulatory environment, financial statements, taxation, and working capital. Knowing the structure is one thing. Passing the exam comes down to practice. And that's exactly what we've built for you at Practices Academy. We've got a question bank with 659 questions for F1, fully explained, mapped to every area of the syllabus, so you can drill exactly where you're weakest. We've also got up to 7 mock exams in the full package, built on the same structure as the real objective test, so there are no surprises on the exam day. And if you want the full teaching alongside to the practice, we've got a complete video course covering F1 from start to finish. Whatever stage you're at with F1, this gives you everything that you actually need to get exam ready, not just watch the videos and hope for the best. Link is in the description, go check it out.